Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2 Rebirth. This was one of two games I was the most excited for this year, alongside Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. Infinite Wealth lived up to my expectations, but did Rebirth? I think when watching a video about the 7 remakes, it's important to know the perspective of the person you're watching, in regards to how much experience they have in this world. I have played the original Final Fantasy VII, I have played Crisis Core, and of course played the first part of Remake. I was really worried about the direction this next chapter would take narratively, following the divisive ending of Remake, but I was more so excited for the increased scale of the game, knowing that we were going to be travelling through some of my favourite places in gaming. We are first of all going to start with the world design, and we're going to talk about the story last because it's confusing as fuck, so let's go. So, the biggest change from Remake to Rebirth is of course the scale of the world. We are now free from Midgard's shackles, a section which took merely a few hours in the original, and are free to explore the world, and what a gorgeous world it is. They didn't put their best foot forward, first of all with the grasslands, which are pretty bland, but it's more of an introductory stage. Underdunen also wasn't anything special to behold, although I did enjoy the minigames in the area, but Coral is jaw-droppingly stunning. Gongaga and Cosmo Canyon were also gorgeous looking places that were incidentally an absolute chore to navigate. The chapters are kind of split into open world areas and linear sections, and it's no surprise that the tighter focus sections are generally of a higher quality. They just flow nicer, both narratively and in terms of set pieces and combat encounters. The open world stuff is actually pretty meh and loses its charm very quickly. It's standard Ubisofty garbage where you climb towers to reveal the map and then you go and kill a few things or collect a couple things. It's optional content, so I don't want to criticise it too much, but there is way too much of it and it's very tedious to do. There's annoyingly slow animations at a lot of these for seemingly no reason, and it really hurts the flow of the game when you are doing side content. You also essentially have to do some of them, as it's the only way to upgrade your summons, and it's also the only way to unlock certain types of materia. It also doesn't help that almost all of it involves Chadley, who wouldn't be as annoying if he didn't appear every 5 minutes to give you a generic message that feels wholly unnecessary. Chadley has gotten a lot of hate since the game's release, and while I don't hate him, he is very annoying, and his appearances should have been halved at the very least. The only open world side content that was really quite cool to me was the Proto Relics, which are a sort of side quest specific to each region, which usually centre around a fun little minigame, such as the Fort Condor game from the original, that's back as a Proto Relic game. These Proto Relic side adventures are usually quite fun, but some are also really boring, such as the Nibelheim one, where you have to slowly follow the robed men. Genuinely, I would love to know whose idea this was, so I could just ask them why the hell they thought this would be a fun minigame, especially as it's the last one. As I'm sure you've heard by now, there's a boatload of minigames too, like an absolute boatload. They're everywhere, and I honestly enjoyed a lot of them. I've seen a few people saying that they got a bit overwhelming at certain stages, but I honestly really liked them. They didn't cause me many issues. There's a lot that are optional, but there are also some that are not optional and are part of the main game. For example, the Junon Parade is masterfully brought to life through the minigame you have to complete, and it's probably one of my favourite moments in the game in terms of its presentation and execution. Then we've got Queen's Blood, the token card game all RPGs have nowadays, and it may just be my favourite one of them all. The aim of the game is to accumulate more points in order to win the 3 lines. Whoever has a high score at the end wins. There's a whole bunch of cards to get, and they each have different abilities that shape the gameplay up quite a lot. I played every single game of this that I could, and I finished the quest line that was associated with it. Wonderful, wonderful game. There are also a bunch of normal standard side missions that vary massively in quality. They each feature Cloud and one other member of your party, and completing the side mission will increase your bond with that party member. Some of them are fun and quirky, but a lot are pretty stale, though not as bad as Final Fantasy XVI side missions. God damn were they bad. Overall, the world of Final Fantasy VII is absolutely stunning, and whilst a lot of the optional stuff you do there isn't great, there's more than enough to sink your teeth into if you choose to do so. The combat in this game is of course awesome. Much like Remake, it is real time, but it's that tactical edge that keeps it reminiscent of the turn-based games. The enemies can be pressured and staggered if you exploit their weaknesses as you'd assume, and finding the right combination of party members to balance your squad is fun. You've also got stuff as your synergy abilities, which require you to play as all the characters that you have equipped, and you really do want to do that because most of them are pretty fun to play as. And of course, with further customization available such as the materia and weapon abilities you can equip, you've got a lot of choice in terms of how your party is built up. There's also a Final Fantasy X style sphere grid that is really trimmed down from that game and wasn't really all that fun to go up. Most of the unlocks you get from there don't really feel overly worthwhile, but it's something to dump skill points into, so there is that. And as I mentioned before, you should be playing as multiple characters. You'll be less effective if you solely use Cloud. They all have their uses. My usual party when all characters were available was Cloud, Aerith and Barret. I utilised Aerith for heals mostly, as her attacks were a bit too slow for me, and Barret I mainly used for ranged attacks. He absolutely melts airborne enemies especially. Whilst I did mostly use these characters, I also enjoyed tinkering around a bit with Tifa and Red 13 when the situations called for it. I've seen some people say that Red wasn't that fun to play as, but I disagree. I felt like his abilities were pretty cool, and I'm just a massive Red 13 stan anyway. You do eventually get to play as Yuffie, and that was also pretty fun in smaller doses. She feels light and agile, and in general, Yuffie brings a lot of personality to the game, although she doesn't really get her moment to shine. But her playstyle coincides well with the characterization, and I feel like it works well. I, however, really did not enjoy playing as Cait Sith. The Moogle is so slow, and I just couldn't get used to his moveset. Maybe it's because he becomes playable too late in the game, but his section in Nibelheim was an absolute chore to get through, and was definitely the part of the game I enjoyed the least. You have to do this annoying throwing puzzle which isn't even hard, it's just tedious, it's not fun at all. But as a character, Cait Sith is brilliant, he's hilarious, and he brings a lot to the game. Then you've got the boss battles, which are just wow. The music, oh god, the music. If there's one thing Final Fantasy always seek to nail, it's the presentation of their boss fights. This game, by the way, quick side note, quite literally has over 400 tracks. 400 tracks! That is absolute insanity. You really feel the spectacle, it's fantastic. Utilising each element of your party to take down a boss provides some of the best moments in the whole game. They were great in Remake, and they've taken an even bigger leap in Rebirth. It is now time to discuss the story, which is obviously going to get a bit messy, but this isn't an ending explained video, so we're not going to analyse the whole thing, just take a look at some major events and give my thoughts on them. There will eventually be a spoiler update, but I'll give you a warning before that, you're pretty much safe. So, many fans, myself included, were quite worried in regards to where this story was going to go following the ending of Remake. But I actually think that for the most part, they've done a good job. I think they've got some crucial things wrong, but we'll talk about that towards the end. For the most part, the story is actually great. It's pretty faithful for a lot of its runtime, and I do feel those moments are where the story is at its best, as the original game had a fantastic story to begin with. The Whispers do of course appear, and they have their say, and there is a fair amount of disruption caused to the timeline. The game has a high amount of emotional moments that are presented very well. Barret's arc was the highlight of that for me. His backstory with Dyne and his relationship to those from his hometown are explored brilliantly in this game and do his character a lot of justice. This section of the original game was the moment that really made me take a step back and marvel at how deep these characters were, and I really like that Rebirth managed to mirror that feeling this time around. Red 13's arc in Cosmo Canyon is also a standout. I always loved this part of the original game, and it's just great to learn more about Red's backstory. It really fleshes out his character so much that I was amazed and in awe at seeing it being brought to life in this game. It's one of the most emotional moments in the whole thing, and it's just brilliantly executed. One of the better moments narratively of the entire game. I'm now going to talk about one thing that I didn't really like too much, which may well be a bit controversial, but I am going to explain myself, and that is that Sephiroth appears too much in this game. In the original, he didn't appear anywhere near this much, but more importantly, whenever he did, he had a clear purpose and was ready to cause chaos. It adds to his mystique. We're aware he's this all-powerful, elusive horror, that when he appears, you're supposed to feel the chill in the characters and the fear. His appearances meant more because they occurred less. In Rebirth, Sephiroth appears every couple hours just to smile at Cloud, and I've played the original so I understand what's happening, but it just seems a bit too on the nose to me, and his threat doesn't seem as high. And it's a damn shame, because his character design is incredible, his voice acting is brilliant, he still has that all-powerful aura about him, but it's less impactful because he appears so often. Aside from him appearing too much though, Sephiroth is absolutely awesome in this game, one of the best, if not the best villain in gaming history, for a reason, and he really does strut his stuff towards the end of this game. I also want to touch on Zack. I've played Crisis Core. They made it clear pre-release that he would have a major role to play in this game. He's on the cover of the damn game, yet his appearances are mostly just in interludes, and his entire inclusion in this game feels like a prologue for his arc in the next game, and I was quite disappointed with that. Right, it is now time to talk about the spoilers, so if you want to avoid spoilers, please skip to the time on screen right now. You have been warned. I really don't like how they handled Aerith's death. We all knew that that would be the crowning moment of this game, that would be how it ends, yet it doesn't have the finality that made this moment so iconic in the first place. It's not even entirely clear upon first glance if she actually died, but she did. Cloud can still see her in the live stream and all that, but the other characters are still mourning her. She is dead, Sephiroth has killed her. I personally didn't care whether they killed Aerith off or not as much as many people. I know that it's essential to the story of the original game, but my view was, as long as they commit to whichever decision they make, I would give them the benefit of the doubt. But they made it far too messy, and they actually wasted what could have been an amazing moment. When Cloud rushes in and blocks Sephiroth from impaling her, that was awesome. I was so hyped, I was like, oh my gosh, they actually have the balls to do this. No! But then she just falls over anyway and the white materia goes rolling. They made this entire ending sequence too convoluted to have the emotional impact it should have, and above all else, that is the main area where Rebirth fails, and I'm really disappointed with how it ended. But ending aside, it's fantastic. Hello everybody that missed out on the spoilers, welcome back for the outro. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is a phenomenal game. In a general sense, this is one of the best JRPGs of the decade, and whilst I have some issues with narrative decisions and some open world design, the clear passion that has gone into almost every facet of this game's design is simply impossible to ignore. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is absolutely going to be a Game of the Year contender come the end of the year, and a must play if you've at least played the first part in Remake, and if you were worried or anything about how they were going to remake this game into 3 parts, I still think it's worth playing because Rebirth specifically is incredible. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. I hope that you did enjoy it. If you did, then please consider leaving a like, as that would greatly help me out. And if you want to see more videos from me, then you could always consider subscribing, because I upload every single week. But for now, that is all. Have a nice day, and goodbye.